Welcome back. It has been a long time, hasn't it? Well, folks, the reason for that is that I had an Eyefinity set up for a long time. Why would that matter, you ask? Multiple reasons, actually. First, let's begin with the almost unbelievable aspect ratio that presents, being 5 1/3 pixels wide per each pixel high, or 5760 by 1080. That's a grand total of 6,270,800 pixels. Compare that to the high definition of total of 2,073,600 pixels. It's less, I'll grant you, than the 4K total of 8,294,400 pixels, but not by very much. Consequently, there are no game screen captures that are capable of capturing full 4K, and even if there were, they certainly aren't free, and absolutely none of them will accurately capture Eyefinity. If we assume that those last two assertions were incorrect, it still would not matter, since no affordable editor will accommodate custom aspect ratios higher than the standard of 1.33 to 1, or 16 by 9, and even after the 4K upgrade. Simply put, once rendered or uploaded to YouTube, the video quality is poor and had huge black bands across the top, since that's not widely used or accepted aspect ratio, which means it would look quite ugly to you, the viewer, and trying to accommodate that was quite frustrating for me, the content creator. Now, however, I'm using a 2560 by 1080 screen. I still get the nice big viewing angle to play on, but the resulting black bars across the top and the bottom of the screen, due to the nature of the capture and rendering softwares, is quite a bit smaller. In addition, there's less pixel loss, since the final number of pixels is closer to the same number as HD than Eyefinity was, so the resulting picture quality is closer to what I actually see and is more pleasant for you to watch. Alright, boring explanation over. Let's talk about the Star Wars Battlefront beta. It was fucking terrible, but let's explore why. First, there is the flight controls and flight setup for the various aerial vehicles. You'll notice that the entire time I'm flying these fucking things, it looks like my reticle is all over the damn place. Well, that's because it is. You see, in their infinite wisdom, these shitfuck moron developers decided to institute a kind of autopilot for the game. It tries to automatically level and correct your flight path for the vehicle you are supposed to be piloting. Consequently, you spend the entire time fighting this ludicrously idiotic system, resulting in your flight path and pattern being all over the goddamn map. Second, you'll notice how long the interval is between the time you and your vehicle spawn is and the time you're actually allowed to control your vehicle. Long enough, in fact, for the enemy to swoop in behind you, lock on to you, and begin firing before you've had a chance to take full control of your vehicle or even fire your first shot. Given the static spawn locations and the distance of the power-ups for the rebels from their spawn versus the distance of the Imperial power-ups from their spawn, one can only conclude that this is by design. For the record, it's a fucking shitty design. This alone would be, in a perfect world, enough to scrap the game and force the developers to start from scratch. Sadly, we don't live in a fucking perfect world, do we? Third, let's talk about vehicle spam. Imperials get it, rebels get slaughtered by it. You could be one of those sweaty Star Wars nerds who states that this is close to the movie, but I'd like to point out that even in the movies, the rebels got gun emplacements that could and did take out enemy ground assault vehicles with pretty great ease, and that the Imperials never got to use said gun emplacements. In fact, they never did use the rebel gun emplacements. Only the rebels used them. The Imperials didn't need them. They had fucking vehicles. Okay, just see where we're going with that. Alright, move on to the next point. Fourth, let's talk about spawn rate. Not only does it exist, which we all agree it shouldn't, in the beta, it was a motherfucking way of life. Since Walker Assault, and that's the game mode I'm mostly going to be focusing on, has 3 distinct game stages, the Imperials do all of the early game spawn rate and most of the middle game too, which you'll see in my video clips. Usually with vehicle spam. That's honestly the best way to do it, as you can see me doing here. The last stage of the game is where the rebels finally get to turn the tables a little bit, and they get the chance to do some serious fucking spawn rape, and believe me, it's pretty goddamn awful. When the Imperials spawn rape, they actually have to get in a vehicle and move forward and actually go through rebel gunfire and gun emplacements to get to the rebel spawn and kick the shit out of them. On the other hand, the third stage of Walker Assault allows any rebels that are remaining behind that third stage, say somewhere back at the first stage or the second stage of the map, because they don't get auto-whooped for it or anything of the sort, they get to stick back there and just wait for you to spawn in, and then as soon as you're spawned in, just shoot you to death before you can turn around, before you can react, before you can get out of the way. Now, I'll grant you it helps to have a jetpack, and maybe you can avoid it a little bit, but when you don't know that they're behind you, you just spawn in and all of a sudden you're getting shot to death, and it doesn't really tell you where from. Yeah, it's pretty much a go fuck yourself moment. Fifth, let's talk about rebel gun emplacements. I mentioned these a little bit before, but to be perfectly clear, they're not as effective as one might think they could be. Firstly, they're easy as fuck to destroy. Secondly, the Imperials spawn closer to them in the first two sections of Walker Assault than the actual goddamn rebels. How the fuck does that make sense? I don't even know. Thirdly, they're not very effective at either killing Imperials or their vehicles. And last but certainly not least, and this is the point that really pisses me off, the Imperials are allowed to use them. No, that's not a joke. Imperials in rebel gun emplacements. Now, where this shit gets bad is during the second wave of Walker Assault, primarily due to the shitty spawn points and moronic gun emplacements, the Imperials can actually use several of these guns to trap rebel forces inside that goddamn rat nest of a bunker, pin them down, and just completely blow them away. Yeah, that doesn't butt-fuck the imbalance at all, does it? Oh, wait, yes it does. Moving along. Some other points I'd like to address. TIE fighters and TIE interceptors are more maneuverable and more useful than either Rebel A-Wings or Rebel Snowspeeders, and spawn the entire duration of the map. TIE fighters, just TIE fighters during the first two sections, and just TIE interceptors during the third section. It doesn't really matter. One's as maneuverable as the other. The only difference is TIE interceptors don't have a homing missile and the TIE fighters do. Big whoop. They're highly maneuverable, they're very fast, and they're extremely effective. Alright. The Rebel X-Wing is the only vehicle that can match either of those two for maneuverability and power, but it only spawns during the first section of Walker Assault, and you'll notice in these video clips, it spawns a huge distance away from the Rebel spawn point, as opposed to the TIE Fighter power-ups, which spawn pretty much right in front of the Imperial forces. I mean, the Imperials can get TIE Fighters within 2 to 3 seconds of being spawned, whereas, you know, a Rebel, it's going to take you a little bit to get to the spawn points, and, you know, fuck you if you don't make it. So god-awful. That's... the whole thing just grossly upsets the game balance and is completely counter to the Star Wars movie. The A-Wing, let's talk about the A-Wing for a minute, is faster than either of the types of TIE fighters, but in this game is less maneuverable than either, which again is counter to Star Wars canon. It's supposed to be faster and more maneuverable than the TIE fighters, but not have as good as armor as, say, the X-Wing. Again, it's a total what the fuck moment, because the damn things are mostly useless. Especially when you factor in the game trying to auto-level and autopilot the fucking ships for you. It's fucking terrible, but whatever. The other thing about the A-Wings, the power-ups are only 2 places on the map. One's inside the relative safety of the bunker, and I say relative safety of the bunker for a reason. If you've played this game, you know what I'm talking about. And the other one is directly in the line of Imperial fire, and is right there where the Imperials like to spawn camp rebels. Fucking bullshit. Oh man. And during the third and final wave, rebels only get the snow speeders, which technically can be a last chance to take down the walkers, but, and this is absolutely critical, this is the only aerial vehicle spawn that the rebels get, which is complete bullshit. And the snow speeder has a height ceiling, so rebels have to try to use it against the Imperials, who get more maneuverable and more powerful aerial craft in the form of TIE interceptors, which have no height ceiling and can be more easily obtained than the Rebel snow speeders. Rebel snow speeders, by the way, all of the power-ups directly in the line of Imperial fire. The Imperial TIE fighters, all but one of them's behind cover. Good figure, right? All right, so as I pointed out in point number 2, right, a vehicle spawning in can, because of the way they have this shit set up, can easily be spawn raped by the enemy. Now that's true of both the Imperials and the Rebels, and needs to come to a complete and utter halt. But whatever. Some more final points I'd like to make is I did play a few of the other game modes, and there are a few where the Rebels get the obvious advantage. One in particular was a game mode centering around capturing pods. It was eerily reminiscent of Crisis 3. In fact, it felt like a direct rip-off, where the entire map was on a fucking hill, and the rebels spawned in at the top of the hill from the word go, so they had the high ground from the word go, and the clear advantage, because they had all the cover, they had all the high ground, they could see you no matter where you were. Go fuck yourself. The more game modes, and there were only a very small handful that I played in the Star Wars Battlefront beta, the more I noticed that the pattern of giving one side a clear and definitive advantage over the others just continually repeated. It was utter bullshit. Something else I'd like to address, the guns. The guns in this game. They have a slower bullet travel time than actual bullets, despite the fact that any energy-based weapon, be it laser or plasma, would have a bullet travel time at the speed of light or very, very near it. Certainly much faster than the speed of sound, which, by the way, conventional bullets very rarely break the speed of sound. So there's almost no, comparatively, there would be very little shot travel time in reality. But these things, man, you can just, if somebody is firing in a direct line at you, when I say that you can walk out of the way, I mean you can walk half the distance of the map out of the way while they keep their reticle on you and tracking you the entire time, and the bullets are just falling behind you. Now, for actual bullets, that might make sense at a great enough distance. But for energy-based weapons, that makes me want to strap somebody down and cut their throat to the spine, because that's fucking stupid. It should never fucking happen. Completely unrealistic, and it needs to stop. Okay, bottom line, this is a shitty game. The game's lead programmer even tweeted that it was only a technical beta, and that they had no intention of making any serious balance or gameplay changes outside of, and I quote, tweaking Walker Assault a little. Let's be clear, for this game to be worth anyone's money, it would take a hell of a lot more than a few random tweaks to a single game mode. I very much doubt that I would actually pay any of my hard-earned and quite precious money into such a shitfuck asshat Battlefield clone that is so poorly done, it might as well be a reskinned Battlefield 4, which, as we all know, was so goddamn bad, the developer should have faced the fucking death penalty for it. Truthfully, this game is worse. One last thing I'd like to say. We could, as gamers, continually blame developers for issues with game development until the end of time. Truthfully, we, as the consumers, are the ones to blame. Once upon a time, in the days of yore, and I grant you that was a long time ago, game developers had to put out a quality product or they would go under and never be heard from again. Why? It's simple, really. We would return their shitty fucking products to the stores we purchased it from, right? Let our friends try it before we returned it so that they would know not to buy it. And it wouldn't make any goddamn sales. You see how that works? One guy would get the game, invite all of his friends over and say, hey, come play this game. Everybody would figure out that it's a shitty game. The guy that bought it would return the motherfucker, and all, 5, 10, 15 people that he invited over, none of them would buy it because they knew it was a shitty game. Now, you do that in one neighborhood, great, you've lost 15 sales. How many neighborhoods are there across the country? What? Million? 10 million? Yeah, you see where this goes, right? Okay, now you see what I'm talking about here. And it's pretty simple from there. No sales equals no money equals no jobs equals go fuck yourself, you're a shitty developer. You consumers, the problem is that you consumers now have it in your heads that if you purchase something, if you don't like it, you'll just purchase something else. Which, by the way, is completely fucking stupid. You don't get angry that your money was wasted. You don't bitch when retailers don't give you the option of returning a faulty or shitty product. Consequently, the games you buy end up being shittily done. They never get fixed. And all of this is in spite of the fact that technology has evolved to the point, and that the mediums exist, that these issues can be fixed quickly and cheaply. You want a fine example that my words are true? Go and look up what happened to the Steam release of Batman Arkham Knight. The PC release was so god-awful, it was unforgivable. Yet, it was released approximately 2 weeks after Steam instituted their return policy. Hilariously, almost 80%, maybe over 80%, of the people who purchased the game on Steam returned the damn thing to get their money back. When that mess started, the console kiddies started making statements like, "Who cares, console rule, PC droll, no. Yet, the numbers demonstrated that the PC version had, apparently, outsold the console version nearly 2 to 1, and the return figures were so incredibly fucking high that WB Games lost tens of millions of dollars in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, tens of millions, 2 weeks. They lost so much money, in fact, they had to retask Rocksteady and scores of other developers into fixing the game's issues just so that they could hopefully re-release the game, which, by the way, we're still waiting on, and hopefully make up some of those sales. Here we are nearly 5 months after the fact, still waiting on that update and fix. In the meantime, WB Games has reported their largest and most significant losses in this last financial quarter in almost a decade. The recession didn't hit them as hard as this one goddamn game return. And the only correlation is the shitty release of Batman Arkham Knight on PC. Do you get the picture? You people get the picture. My point, dear viewers, EA and Origin do not have a return system in place, and neither does Ubisoft's Uplay, and they're two of Steam's larger competitors. It's time that they did. This game proves it. You, as consumers, need to start being proactive so shit like this doesn't happen. You need to stop being victims. Because that's clearly what you currently are. Rape victims, every one of you. The game developers, they're the rapists. You and your wallet, you're their victims. It's time to stop being a fucking panty waste and fix it. In fact, why the hell are you still sitting there? Grow a fucking spine and go fix it. Do what I've done. Call EA's support, get on Origin's forums, and demand that they put a goddamn return policy in place comparable to Steam's. Tell them that shitty game development is the reason why. You can even blame them, blame me, and say that I sent you.